All right, welcome to another edition of Techno Brew. This time I've got the pleasure of speaking with Adelson VP of Data Management at BNY Global. Adelson, welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me today. How are you doing today?
I'm all right. I'm all right. It's a beautiful day in Toronto. How about you?
Fantastic. I'm right here live in Florida, so over by a Popcar area. So really great to have you today.
Yeah, wicked, wicked. I wanted to kind of uh, get your sense of where your journey I guess started and how you kind of got into data management in the first place and how you got to BNY Mellon. We want to hear the origin story.
Oh, absolutely. Well, my journey started into data management began while I was working in the fan experience department with the Orlando Magic. I had the opportunity to co-lead a cross-functional team responsible for supporting and launch a new fan engagement app. Our
Wow.
goal was to ensure that a seamless user experience, and I took that active leadership role to coordinate some troubleshooting effort. Doing that in that role, I delegated tasks and maintaining clear communication against all across all departments. And it was at that time I see how data was important to me. Furthermore to that, leading a troubleshooting team taught me how to manage both team and people under pressure, and there's nothing more crazier when you have fan yelling at you over some app glitches and things like that. So things got a little crazy every now and then.
Yeah.
So during that time, I learned how to analyze technical issues, prioritize the solutions, and then most importantly, how to use data to really make informed decision. And that experience opened my door to my interest in analytics, and I soon began learning how to work with Tableau and use Power BI, and to really better understand the user's behavior and also get an idea how the app is performing as well. And this combination of leadership and technical problem solving and data curiosity is what ultimately pulled me into the world of data management. And then I realized the impact data could have not just in operations, but also an overall fan experience when it comes to the fans being in the building just trying to enjoy a magic game on any particular night, right? So
Yeah.
I've been passionate about it ever since then.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like you're like the ultimate super fan, right?
Oh
You
yeah,
literally, yeah, you literally designed it, from the ground up. You're a data manager's data manager. That's the kind of person you sound like. So,
it's amazing.
um,
I love numbers.
yeah. Well, that makes one of us. I'm terrified of them. So, I'd rather leave the number crunching to my partner. She's good at it, and I've got my strengths as well, but numbers is definitely not one of them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, that's quite a journey, to go from Orlando Magic and kind of like dedicating yourself to like the fan experience, and then now here you are, VP of Data Management for BNY Global, and that's been as we were talking before, this journey to integrating AI into your operations has been that's been a journey in and of itself. You said about 2 years in the making, right? And
Oh
so,
yes.
yeah, without going into specifics about proprietary AI solution employed by you guys, I understand, like I don't want to do that and get you in trouble. But can you maybe elaborate on the key advantages and challenges of deploying a proprietary solution versus adopting an off the shelf AI tool, especially in a highly regulated sector like finance?
Absolutely. Well, going proprietary it's really the way to go, and it has its ups and downs. I mean,
Sure.
we all know about GPT. We all know about DeepSeek, and there's a bunch of other AI areas. Copilot, for example. There's a lot. However, I ask people, why go proprietary, right? So the number one thing is the tailored fit, you know. So you have the opportunity to custom the solutions that you want to align with your workflow. You want to, work better solutions for your clients, and that creates an opportunity that to go beyond that, something that is yourself. And also it meets the regulatory needs for all of that. Now, second thing is I want to cover is the data control. You have
Right.
full ownership over your data handling and security and compliance. And all of that plays a big role in why
Yeah.
you go to having something that's in house. Now, the third thing I want to reach to would be the strategic edge that you do have. Now, when you have a proprietary AI, it can be embedded into what would you call uh, a you have a unique competitive advantage over other people. Why? Because your data is not out for everybody to see. You have it
Yeah.
under control. You have it where you can provide value to your team. So that makes it really, really, really important. Now, there's also their downside on having your own in-house things, right? So
Sure.
can't have the best of both worlds sometimes. However, the number one thing that I see is the cost and then the time, right? So when you're building a house, you have to get one everybody under that same vision that, hey, if we have this, it could make our work life a lot easier, where we can use automation, we can use different approaches to really get an awesome outcome and what we're looking for. And then another down thing is the ongoing maintenance. Of course, we have to maintain that in-house data that we do have going on. So whether it is the tuning of it, it could be the governance, and also could and also of course the transparency, right?
Yeah.
And then we also have to make sure that we always following the regulatory aspect of it, right? So which goes into the compliance portion,
Sure.
and sometimes, when you have custom algorithms, are they up to compliance? So
Yeah.
so that could be hard to maintain. So I
For
think
sure.
that's why it's good to go proprietary.
Yeah, and you had mentioned in our previous conversation as well, just that need to separate, your client data, from maybe generic, more metadata type sources where you aren't risking um, vital client information or exposing it potentially to outside access, or access outside of the whoever needs to have proper controlled access to, because I imagine you have somewhat of a zero trust environment going on, where only necessary access is granted on a per case basis probably. And so I'm just recalling also, you had mentioned that good foundation in AI, mentioning the importance of establishing that for your team. So in your view, what are those critical data infrastructure elements and governance practices that are necessary to put in place to support this effective AI implementation?
Of course. So with any kind of project, right? You gotta have a foundation. You gotta have and basically balance out the good and the bad before you even launch something like this.
Yeah.
Let alone, something of that magnitude, and that is in the huge banking industry where it's highly regulated, right? So I think that uh, you need a solid data infrastructure. That's that's a given. You gotta have that. Second is you gotta have a strong governance. So reason why I say data infrastructure, because make sure your data is clean. That's the number one thing, because the last thing you
Yeah,
want to have it's some weird glitchy data that doesn't provide you any value, right? And then second, you want to have it where it's accessible to who it needs to be accessible to, whether it's your
sure,
clients, whether it's your stakeholders. uh, each part of data has a portion where it needs to be uh, reaching out to some kind of person to bring value to them. So data
right,
accessible is really important. And then you got to have the storage. Make sure that storage is scalable and make sure it's properly processed. There's no hiccups while it's being processed. And then having that pipeline in place prepares you to be able to reach that next level, right? And second part would be governance. Um, Privacy and security is like the number one thing. Like we talked before, having your data secured by a huge institution or any kind of financial institution is the best thing that you can think of. Because imagine you have your private information just exposed to the world. It doesn't create a great impression on that institution. And then second thing is you want to be transparent with your stakeholders, be transparent with your team, be transparent of what value you're delivering to that um, base on AI. And then you want to have a model where you can explain to your team what does it do, explain to your stakeholders what does it do. So be able to tell a story of why using the AI is beneficial to them. Also, why is it important to have that on your team and the value that it does bring. And when it comes to that foundation as well, and is having, I want to say, a way of monitoring whether it is that AI that you have, is it fair? Is it accurate? And can you teach it? Just like you have machine learning, you do have also deep learning. You can train your AI to be more accurate on the functions that you want to have.
right. And is that so? I mean, that's a pretty tall order when you consider everyone across the organization that might have access to the solution that you've just rolled out. So I guess there's got to be a huge influence on then, or a huge importance placed on providing training to the team on the use of it. And I wonder if there were any ethical like considerations that you had to consider when you were implementing it as well. I mean, I just you know specific, I guess, areas that you as an organization and other financial organizations would focus on with respect to these training programs, because it wouldn't be just your team, but it would be the greater team that would also need to know how to use these things, these tools responsibly.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, let's face it, right? AI has an enormous potential to transform all industries. And that
Yeah.
goes into sports, that goes into financial industry, that goes into uh, what do you call it? Any industry that you can possibly think of, it goes into it. However, in some industries specifically that is highly regulated, it raises significant ethical challenges. Providing comprehensive training for ethical use of AI is really essential, because we don't want to take a risk that's gonna put everybody at risk. So we want
Of
to make sure
course.
that we have that proper training. Now, one thing to really consider about training would be the, how would I put it? Uh, the awareness of bias and fairness. We don't want to have a system that's not really fair to everybody, right?
Mm,
So an AI model that can unintentionally perpetrate bias, present in data, or leading to an unfair discrimination or outcomes. Training helps team recognize and mitigate those biases, and that's early during the development. So it's all worldwide. Everybody's treated the same way, right?
yeah.
Second thing that I do want to cover would be trust and accountability. Now, um, that goes, I don't know, that goes into ethical training itself. Everyone understand the importance and the transparency and the way of explaining what is happening as we build this. So among all users, we use we build trust. We among the customers, we also have to build trust with regulators too. I think having that foundation really helps. It also it makes it it makes your organization be known as uh, an organization that is good with integrity and that takes accountability, and it also uh, affect people's lives in a positive way. Why? Because you're building something that's gonna create a positive outcome for that person, right?
Yeah.
Next thing I want to cover would be compliance and regulation standards and things like that. Uh, as government and other industries create guidelines for AI ethics and regulators and things like that, training a team to be up to date with uh, the current regulations is one of the best things that you can do. Why? Because it reduces your risks as a and as a company. It also keep you in line where you're not non-compliant with really what's happening, but also it protects your your reputation as a whole company, right? And then the
Sure.
last one that I want to cover would be uh, it promotes innovation. Why? Because man, how could I put that in a good way? I want to say that it respects your privacy. Why? Because we do have those foundation already in place.
Sure.
It also create a social impact, ensuring that AI technology are developed and deployed uh, responsibly. Because if we don't do it responsibly, we put ourselves at risk of exposing things that should not be exposed.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think having that in place creates more room for innovations and to go further and grow.
For sure, right. And you had mentioned before about data installation from of like personal information from chatbots and the like, right?
Yes.
And how meticulous you were to ensure that you were protecting that sensitive data while still being able to leverage AI to enhance customer experience and efficiencies internally. So, all of this prep, and training and ethical consideration aside, well, I guess when you were developing this AI solution framework, over the last couple of years, what were your expectations? What did you anticipate would be the results? Like there must be some really like I guess what are some of the ways where you're seeing already? Wow, this is making a huge impact just from the day before launch to present?
Well, it all started because seeing what ChatGPT was doing, and it was like some amazing stuff, right? So I went ahead and took some classes to first prepare myself and to really understand what's happening with this. Now, taking those classes give me a deeper understanding on how machine learning works, on how deep learning works, and further get my. I become more. I don't know. I would say more interested in learning deeper and deeper about AI and what it can do. And one key thing is prompt engineering. You can really do a lot based on how you engineer your chatbot to do things certain ways that you want them. There's certain ways that you can tell it to do certain things, and then it will assist you on how to do certain things, right? So
Yeah,
when going through that transformation, you know, and we offer a lot of different classes to really learn how to use those chatbots, how to use that pro- proprietary AI where we can bring value to that team. And it takes a team to do that because is one helping one another. And that creates the value, that creates the vision that we need to move forward and grow.
for sure. So when you were when we were talking, you were giving me an example of like even with these powerful automations and data manipulation and analysis functionality that AI gives you, there's still a measure of not trusting the data just blindly, and kind of being able to so find your learnings, and then you're still going through these rigorous kind of like vetting process so that you're not you know accidentally handing over data that might be just a hallucination from the AI to your client. So what's that been
Absolutely.
like, since you've launched this? What's that experience been like, I guess, for you, for the team, and for the end users that are using it?
Well, the whole thing goes back to the foundation. You gotta have that. And yes, of course, when you're using AI to dissect data and, you ask it to do a certain thing, it'll do it for you. However, you always want to have a second eye. You always want to review things with your own self and make your own judgment. And that's how you are able to provide that value to those clients, to those stakeholders. And that's what creates the ultimate experience. Because the last thing that you don't want, like you want, is to produce something. Let's take an analyst, for example, right? If you're providing an wrong analysis to the wrong stakeholders, the wrong parties, that breaks that trust. Why? Because you only relied only on the AI. But in real life, you gotta be on top of those things. You gotta make sure that what is being put the input and the output matches the ultimate goal, matches the objective that you want to provide from what you want to put into this. So I would say review, review, review. Don't solely trust an AI. It only goes so far, but having that human interaction, that second eye to really look at what the outcome was, that's how you know that it's going to help out. Sure, of course, it helps with time and analysis and things like that. Things that you would probably spend a couple of days doing, it'll just do it for you. Maybe 30 minutes, so it helps a lot. So I would say second eye look at things makes you safer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you kind of answered my next question, which was going to be, given that focus on data heavy teams and this drive to automate, you know, how would you, I guess, the importance of human oversight and control, like, and that second set of eyes. So thanks for, for kind of, jumping ahead and really kind of like clarifying that beforehand. So um, you had mentioned in our conversation as well, like, a move to adopting an agile framework for data management and development. I guess what has been, I guess, a challenge and benefit of this, part of that journey, and what advice, I guess, with respect to that, would you give to other organizations that might embark on a similar transformation?
Man, I would say agile business agility overall has changed so much when it comes to an organization. Just imagine doing things and a fraction of the time that you would do it. Let's take it from a project management standpoint, right? Of course, there's different methodologies that you can use, but personally, I found that Scrum is the way to do things more effective. You bring more value, your outcome becomes so much better. Now, uh, as for myself, for my personal growth, and that brings value to my team and the whole organization as a whole, right? I started with Scrum. That was my first step of pivoting towards business agility. And then from there, and I really got deeper into being a product owner. So you really get that training to really understand what it's like to be a product owner, what it's like to work with a scrum master, what it's like to really work with a whole agile release train. So having that background really helped me with my team to grow a lot better and also provide agility on every project that we take to provide that value that we're looking for. And then
Yeah, and
with
you
my
really know what you're talking about too, because you've got you're a certified Scrum Master, and you're a PMP certified as well, and
yes,
scaled Agile framework release trained, engineer trained. Like, you really, I can really see from your accreditations that you really dive into it, and from the looks of it, it's really served you well, particularly with this implementation that you've made.
oh, yeah, absolutely. For me, this is just the beginning. I have such a drive to really reach the next level and implementing more changes, implementing a team that's going to create more value while providing also business agility. And that's what this whole thing's about. It's about business agility. How can we do things faster and more efficient? That's going to create the value for that organization. When you create agility, it saves time. Your team becomes more efficient. You can create more value. You can also create a way where everybody work in sync because of agility, because of agile, especially for from the safe framework. The way it's set up for you to continue improving on certain things that were not there before. If you have a scrum master will protect your team from outside distraction and focus on that one goal. And that is the definition of being done with that sprint or iteration or whatever that you're working on. And then that creates a great note for that release train engineer to really move that business with force and really create that value that those stakeholders are looking for.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that, towards the end, because I do want to talk about, when when you're looking to build a team, what key components from a skill and competency perspective you're looking for. But I'll save that till a little bit later. I want to go back to you made a cool reference to like a real throwback term. Like you talked about Eliza, like really early like natural language processing. Back in the '60s, and so
Yes.
one of my questions to you was going to be like, what's the most significant change you've observed, I guess, in AI's capabilities and applicability over your career, and what are the most exciting developments that you see on the horizon? Because you're talking about being prepared and having the right environment and set up for yourself to be able to implement these things. What excites you about what's on the horizon that you would could see, I guess, being implemented?
Well, one thing that I haven't really spoke to a lot of people about is super AI. I know this may sound crazy to you or anybody out there,
Not at all.
but it's basically artificial super intelligence, right? So it's a hypothetical kind of deal, but it will happen. And that having that background of AI will prepare us to go further along. Now, you may be asking, what is super AI, right? Super AI is having that human intelligence to really change the entire world in a way where a person will be able to think of something. However, that super AI will think it like a million times faster. And they'll be able to resonate what's wrong and what's right. That sounds scary. However, it's in the works. It will be a thing. I want to say probably in the next 20, 25 years.
That's
And
interesting. Yeah.
exactly. And that goes back into deep learning, right?
Yeah.
So with deep learning, imagine having an AI that teaches its AI how to think like a human and have to be self-aware, how to build consciousness, and then having the capability of having independent thoughts. So that's
Yeah.
basically what it is, and being able to outperform humans in cognitive tasks.
Yeah.
Now,
I think
el-
that stuff that nerds me out. That stuff, and I love it. And you remind me of Ray Kurzweil, and his whole like talking about the singularity point. And it's interesting how you said like maybe in 20-25 years that might happen, because he had predicted that by 2021 we would have
what?
hit the singularity point, right? Yeah, where
Yes.
where 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 that was going to happen. And so by his calculation, where there should be a super intelligence, a super AI already, somewhere, maybe without us even knowing it. So I mean, um, interesting, potentially scary, but really entirely fascinating too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, when you think of a large language model, right? Think
Yeah,
about um, OpenAI's ChatGPT or Google's Gemini, or now they have made it Meta's Llama or Yama, whatever
yeah.
that you want to call it.
That's right.
But
Yeah,
these things are basically designed to answer questions. You can write summaries of a book. You can translate languages. You can, let's say, I don't know, you can automate a chatbot to answer your customer support when it goes to your website.
yeah,
And you can also analyze a piece of document within a matter of seconds.
yeah,
Now, imagine that on a larger scale level. And that's what creates that. Now, I want to dig deeper into generative AI, right?
Sure.
So over time, you're gonna be seeing a a new version of ChatGPT, for example, right? Let's say that you have this picture posted here, and you wanna have that picture be broken down into pieces. That AI will learn that picture. Hey, this is a dog. Hey, this is a cat. Hey, this is a person. This is a distinct feature of that person, of that dog. It goes hand in hand. And over time, as you feed it more information, it captured that information. So when you get to that chat GPT, say, hey, I want to generate a cat riding a horse. It's gonna do its best to generate that kind of picture. Why? Because it already been trained
Yeah.
this to those distinct features of a cat or a horse or a dog or a human. So that's generative AI is gonna be even a lot better than it is right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess for you, in the practical sense of what you're accomplishing for BNY, it's ensuring that the information that's generated is based on tangible facts, and not something imagined by
Right.
this by your AI. And so I actually wanted to go back to kind of like, I guess in the context of AI, and we had talked about governance, we had talked about risk. What are and but we haven't talked about the various components of the solution that you've comprised. And I mean, conceivably, I guess you'd be using outside vendors. And so when you're considering these vendors, you mentioned Google and Meta, and and OpenAI. What are these? What are your considerations when you work with these external AI vendors, and how does I guess BNY ensure that vendor solutions align with your end goals, or even from, like, I guess a regulatory perspective, right? That must have been quite an exercise for you.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the whole process. When you have an entire team that's dedicated to research, dedicated to trial and errors, and over time they're gonna be knowing what to look for, and they're gonna be looking something that's gonna be based on risk, based on compliance, based on the value stream that it's gonna bring. It's also gonna be based, is it something that is usable? Is it something that can get better? Is it something that you can train to really get better outcomes over time? Let's say, for example, you take a piece of data, right? You feed it to this random chatbot, right? And over time, it's it based on how you engineer your prompt, that's the outcome that you're gonna get. If you just put some random stuff in there without having an idea what you wanted to get out of, you're not gonna get any value out of it. Let's say, okay, I have this structured data already clean, already gone through the whole process, everything is aligned, and let's say that it's a data that shows spend on the United States, shows spend in Germany, that shows spend in Brazil, that shows spend in let's say Nigeria, that shows spend in Dubai. You are able to ask that piece of AI, hey, show me spend, show me where the spend is higher at this time during that time last year, and then compare it to this time this year. also show me a trajectory line. Is it increasing or is it
Mm,
decreasing? And then you'll see it'll start thinking, it will start pulling all the information based on that data that you submitted to that little chat bot. It will start dissecting piece by piece over time where this is going. And then next thing you know, it'll give you the type of analysis that you want. You can even pick whether you want to have, like, let's say a combo chart, like I say, a line graph
sure.
comparing to a bar graph that tells you the trajectory of that data. Let's say that you want to find out, did we save money? Did we lose money? It'll tell you all these things. Again, going back, you always have to make sure you are reviewing what you have versus what the AI is being put out. So
Right.
you use it the way you're supposed to be using it.
Right.
Use it
And I guess,
use it responsibly as well.
yeah, and you and to your point as well about, training that training it, to I guess be able to find that information within that structured data, and then leveraging it with that capability for the various teams that you're enabling, with this solution. So I imagine it has to be a game changer, and it's definitely an exciting time. I wondered if maybe I could ask you, because I just want to be mindful of the time. It is, we've got probably about 15 minutes left,
Hmm.
and I was wondering, um, given I guess the rigors of your role and the data management group, what is it that you look for from a skill set and a competence perspective? When you consider, how you selected the people on your team, or I guess for and people that might want to be prospective team members. Like what, like should they all have their PMPs? Should they have their, should they follow the Adelson train and trajectory, to BNY Mellon? Like what is it that you're looking for?
Okay, so to start with my thing, for my way of progressing to my career, essentially, I want to be a chief AI officer. That's my ultimate goal, and that's what I'm working towards. Um, you know, I like learning.
Yeah,
I like progressing. I like being better than I was yesterday, than the day before. That's the idea of having a positive trend in your life. I don't like to be stagnant, right? So the number one thing
sure.
is to have a vision, to have a vision, to really come together as a team. Can you bring that teamwork effort that's gonna propel us to higher levels, right? That's the number one thing. And are you a team player? Can you allow yourself to learn something new? Yes, you may have your way of doing one thing, but when it comes to a team effort, can you contribute? Can you follow a team flow, right? So that's also really important. When it comes to technical um, knowledge, I'll say learn Python. Python is one of the most widely known, uh, you know, programming language in the entire world. Now, from a data standpoint, if you want to go into data scientist or data engineering, I will go towards learning R. It's one of the coolest language to learn as well. If you get becoming a data scientist, having R and Python is really amazing. But other languages, I would say probably C++. That's also a great programming language to really have, right? And also Next thing I want to cover will be machine learning and deep learning, right? So if you have a passion to learn new things, I would get out to TensorFlow, PyTorch, Keras. These are the things that are out there to really learn. Also, have a interest in learning regression analysis. That's a really cool area to really venture into to learn more about data and learn a trajectory way of a data going certain places, the objective of a data. Quick, when you have time to yourself, create a a system where you provide yourself with at least 30 minutes to pick up something and learn. And to me, that's really, really, really important. And if somebody wants to learn about data, they want to learn deeper things about data, I would say learn to handle data itself, right? That starts with data cleaning because sometimes you'll get some data that's not clean. You can't just do things with it. You got to be make sure that you go into that cleaning process. Also, when it gets to that cleaning process, learn to have a transformation, which goes into telling a story with the data. What is this piece of data is gonna tell the end user, right? Make sure that you have that kind of objective of meeting, hey, I want this data to tell the story. Whether you can
Right.
use Power BI, you can use Tableau, you can even use Excel to really tell a story of what that piece of data will tell the end user. And then another thing I want to say, it's gonna be SQL, and which is another way you can use with Python to really tell it what to do, right? And through SQL is very powerful. You can do whatever that you want the data to do through learning that SQL.
Yeah.
Um,
That's really. I mean, that's to me, your passion really comes through. Like when you talk about this, that you want your goal to be a chief AI officer, and then encouraging, this lifelong passion for learning and acquiring new skills and competencies. Um, and it shows in your career trajectory as well. It shows in the certifications that you have, and the way you talk about, um, you know, learning about, regression analysis and learning, start by, cleaning, handling data, cleaning data. What does the data, what's the story that the data is supposed to tell? I mean, that, um, to me, like, you're very visual when it comes to data. I mean, that's at least, those are that's what you evoke when I hear you. And so I wondered, when it comes to a career trajectory, specific roles perhaps, what do you think, then makes sense from a role progression, like entry level to mid to, ultimately chief AI officer? Like,
I would say career progression. Be f- the biggest thing is to be flexible because your role may take so many turns depending on the organizations that you choose to go into. Um, even being a data entry, right? It gives you that exposure to really understand how a data is structured. And then you can learn database where you can be a database administrator. And then from there, you can become a data analyst where you can analyze a piece of data to really provide spend to what you're gonna give to your stakeholders. And then from data analyst, you can become a data science. And then a data science is it's like it say itself, it's the science behind the entire thing, and goes in depth with data engineering. There's certain way that a data is engineered. And then you go to that ETL process, you know. You can learn all these things, but start with the basics.
Yeah.
Understand what's a data set, understand where in a database that you can go to do certain things. But also, cybersecurity is huge right now, and which pivot into compliance. And there's been a lot of talks about GRC,
Yeah.
and that's governance risk and compliance. And if your data does not pass that, it doesn't become something that can be of use to bring value to any kind of entity or any kind of company. Another free chicken that I wanna drop in here.
Sure.
It's having soft skills. What I like to call essential skills, right? How you have to create a mindset that is, let's say, solving. You gotta be able to solve a problem, right? Since we're talking about AI, being able to translate business needs into AI solutions. That's one thing. And the other thing I want to say is understand fairness, understand bias, and having some emotional intelligence. That's really important, right? And the world of agile, the world of being a servant leader, one of the key thing is transparency.
Here,
Another
yeah.
key thing is respect. You got to be able to respect one another, respect your teammate, and be transparent on exactly what you're working on. When they ask you for update, you provide that update. That creates a better team environment, which does not, which does not, I would say, create tensions. If you do have tensions, talk it out. The number one thing is communication. You gotta have that communication to make things go around. And next thing I want to cover is collaboration. Be able and be flexible to collaborate as a cross-functional team around your organization. It brings a lot of value. A lot of people can come to you and learn something. When they're learning from you, you also learn from them. So don't have that mentality, oh, I know it all. I don't know it all at all.
Yeah.
I'm not even close to knowing it all. But every single day I take that opportunity to learn, and it will get you a lot closer. When you're in that space, work with your data engineers, work with your project managers, work with your stakeholders, work with your teammates, whether they're developers, whether they are your superior, I want to say managers and directors. Work with these people. You learn something from them. Seek knowledge, seek more, and that will get you closer to being agility, to achieve your goals, whatever that you want to achieve in life. And lastly, I want to touch base again on communication, right?
Yeah.
We all understand that from a developer standpoint, right? I can talk to somebody about some acronyms when it comes to tech, but the normal person does not understand that. So you need to be able to understand what you do enough to translate it into something that somebody can understand. For example, if I conducted analysis. I'm not gonna put all the technical terms in there. No, it's not gonna create any value. People are gonna be confused about what I'm saying, right? Instead, hey, this is what this means. So you put it in the simple terms where anybody can understand what you're saying, what you're trying to say, but also bring that value why you did that analysis to achieve that objective. So it's really
Yeah,
important.
for sure. And I feel like that goes back to like when you were talking about career progression and being flexible, right?
Oh, yeah,
If you don't
absolutely.
have that ability to really communicate and you know be able to explain to a layperson like myself what it is that you've done, what it means, so that I understand it. When you're talking about like career progression, you might be pigeonholing yourself in a particular role. Like you might be stuck as an analyst or stuck as an engineer
Right.
because you don't have that ability to break out of that shell and progress to the next step. So really great food for thought there. So thanks for that, Elson. I
Also,
wanted to, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
one thing that I want to say, right? People has
Yeah,
always asked me, why do I keep learning? Yeah, I mean, it's about growth, right? But you also want to be knowledgeable about the environment that you are in, right? For example, I have an ITIL for foundation, right? That allows me to govern my area. Let's say that this person is not able to solve this computer issue. I know how to handle it. Why? Because that type of education set the foundation for me to understand what to do next in that situation. I went ahead and I become a Scrum Master. I become an Agile certified and release train engineer. Now I know if a platform person trying to communicate something to me, let's say that I'm a product owner, I understand exactly what the team needs to do. Why? Because I have that type of background and education to back it up, and also being put in that situation where I can do that. Same thing go for being a PMP. I mean, that's one of the coolest thing that I've ever achieved in my life. And learning how a project works from the planning to the release stage, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of delegating, moving part, budgeting. It goes back into all that. And that's why I keep
sure.
learning. I want to be
Yeah,
able to learn so much that when I learn something, it inspire other people to do the same thing too. Because in this life that we live in, we have to pull up one another because learning is the key to advancement to anywhere. And second would be networking.
oh yeah,
So, so somebody needs guidance to advance in something, lend that helping hand because that person that you lend that hand to might be the person that you end up, you know, having to go to because it's one pulling one another up. And, eventually you will get to where we need to get to
yeah.
in
No,
life.
I believe in that 100%. I think, and I think that's another reason why you and I were able to connect and really advance this the prospect of even having this conversation because your philosophy on the respect and transparency and communication and sharing of information as opposed to hoarding it and kind of that is something that really appeals to me and thank you for sharing that your insights and I think that's a fantastic note to lead this on. Is there like a parting last note that we haven't touched on? And I just want to acknowledge here that from well, this question here, you had answered this, but she was asking, I'd love to identify what soft skills, in addition to technical skills, we can learn to stand out. And you touched on that. So thank you for that. You're very willing and open and sharing of your insight. And I know that I, for one, appreciate it. And I think our audience appreciates it as well. But is there like a final thought that you'd like to leave us with?
Yes, absolutely. And understand that, I want to touch base on that little soft skill
Yeah.
that they asked about. I want to touch base on
Mm.
initiative. Initiate what you want to get out of any situation that you want to get. Be that go getter. I mean, coming from a background of that's very diverse. I mean, I wasn't even born here. I mean, I learned English when I was 12 years old, you know? So I didn't let anything stop me from reaching to where I want to reach in life. And for me, I still think this is just the beginning, right? On last note, I want to say where you are now does not dictate where you go in the future. Understand, if you're going through a hard time, whether that's finding a job, whether that you're having financial difficulties or any kind of personal issues you may have, you have the next day to keep trending forward. And you never lose until you decide yourself that you're gonna lose. Because yes, you may fail something, you may fail that test today, you may fail that test the next day, but eventually each failure is gonna lead you to success,
Fail often, fail
right?
quickly.
And
Right?
oh, yeah, absolutely. And for me, my biggest guidance has been God. I haven't touched base on that. Has been God, and having that higher power, it helps me to keep believing, and also helps me to really advance my way of achieving a lot of things with His guidance. And anybody that's going through a hard time with education, and just know that if you didn't get that call back, it's not meant for you. Trust me, it's not meant for you. But if whatever is for you, it's gonna be for you. So keep believing, keep learning, keep advancing in life.
Thank you, Edison.
Today is today. Tomorrow is a better day.
Thank you, Edison. I think that's a
With that
perfect
being
perfect way to
said,
end this conversation, right? Keep advancing. Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Adelson.
That's
And I've got your information here that I wanted to put up as well, so the team knows, how to reach BNY, how to reach you in particular through LinkedIn, and you've been so gracious and so generous with your insight. I wanna thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for being a guest, and I hope we have another conversation soon.
I hope so too. Thank you for that, and I really appreciate having you. And for those out there that is interested and agile and pursuing Scrum Master career, I will be publishing this book hopefully next
Oh,
month, where you guys can get some knowledge about Scrum, being a Scrum Master,
okay.
and to really understand in depth what it is that a Scrum Master does, the days in, days out, the different frameworks that goes in hand. Okay, so be in the lookout. Maybe it's
Absolutely,
Amazon,
yeah.
maybe it's gonna
Please
be in
let me
your
know as well,
closest
Addison, so I
bookstore.
can post that as well and repost to the feed. So people who tuned in can see that as well. So and Alexia said something nice. I'd love to see a
Absolutely.
philosopher in our tech and AI midst. This brings me comfort. Delighted to have you speak, Adelson. Very inspiring. So thanks for that,
Thank you so much.
Alexia.
I really appreciate your time and having me on this amazing
Thank you
podcast.
so much. It was a pleasure. Let's talk again soon, sir.
All right,
All
will
right.
do. Thank you. Have